All right, guys. I don't think we have anybody on here yet, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I will post this to the Carving Friends website later, or the page rather. First and foremost, I want to apologize to a lot of people out there. I've been getting a lot of private messages as to why I haven't posted anything in quite some time. And the reason for that is very simple. I'm under contract to do a book right now that should be released later this year. And the other thing is I've got a lot of competition pieces that I have been working on that I wanted to share until after the competition. What I'm going to do with you guys is a simple face. This is carved out of a triangle, or cut out of a triangle block. This was originally, it might show up better there, this was originally a triangle piece out of a 2x2 by 6 inches long square. So when you cut those on the diagonal, so to speak, I try to cut them, I don't know if it'll show here, I'll draw it in with my handy dandy pencil. The wood grain is going this way. I try to cut them on the corner to where the wood grain is going toward the nose. That gives me enough support to take care of that. Then what I do is I flip it over to its side when it's on the bandsaw, and I draw just a quick reference photo in there. You can do all of this with a knife. However, I put a square block up against the back side of them, carve them out. I'll do my shoulders and my ears the same width, so when you lay it up, there's no rocking or jumping around. And I can cut that out while I'm on the bandsaw in about 2 to 3 minutes versus taking my knife and my gouges or whatever and cutting all this out. Again, you can absolutely 1000% do it with a knife, but if you're up at the bandsaw, you've got a couple of these square blocks, it's a lot easier to just rough out a couple of these, throw them in the corner, and then when the mood hits you, you can carve them. The other thing I want to talk about real quick is basic tools. I have hundreds of tools, but typically I only use 4 or 5 when I'm carving one of these faces. Your favorite carving knife, whatever that may be. Mine has my name on it. This is number 14. It's carved out of, or it's made out of mahogany wood, available at helvyknives.com under the Signature Series page. Absolutely love this knife. It's got a longer handle on it. It's about 5.5, almost 6 inches long. Another one that I always use, and again, I'm not name brand dropping or whatever, but it's just a flex cut, but it's a 1/2 inch 90 degree. Love this tool for roughing out. The other one is also made by Helvy. This is a number 3, or correction, a 3/8 inch soft V tool. These will be my go-tos for most of the carving that I do. Most of the detail work that I do, I step down to a carving detail knife. This has got a small 1-inch blade in it. This is also one of my knives. It's the eye knife. The next step down is a smaller V tool. It's a 45 degree, 1/4 inch, and it's just a flex cut. I've had these for 15 or 20 years. As long as you maintain them, they'll keep a pretty decent edge. And then I go to the number 9 1/4 inch gouge. Most of the stuff that I do will have one of these 6 tools in it religiously. No matter what I'm doing, it will have that tool in it. Okay. Starting out, we've already got the profile of the nose here, so cutting away from the nose, not cutting directly into the nose. Follow that profile. I scoop out those cuts. And I don't get too carried away with trying to clean that up. I would much rather clean that out with a gouge than I would coming in here and doing a bunch of stop cuts and relief cuts. I'm going to pop off just the tip of the nose here. I'm now going to take all of the saw marks off the sides of the face. You guys that take classes, one of the biggest things that took me a long time to realize, and I didn't really fully understand what the instructors were saying until I started teaching myself. If you sit in a class And it's okay to wait on the instructor, but if the instructor has to come through and clean up your carving from all the saw marks, that's just taking time away from your time with the instructor. So, you know, the main thing you can do, even if you don't know what to do, is clean all the saw marks up. And it doesn't take a lot to do that. You can do that relatively easy with just a knife or a gouge. Same way in here, I want to take all of this stuff off with just a couple of cuts. And notice you heard that click. Carving with the grain on the side there, those chips are going to come off of there relatively easily. Flipping the carving upside down below the nose. My wife's phone's going crazy over here, and cut the volume off on it. But it doesn't take much to get that done. And once you get all those saw marks off, you're not trying to put detail cuts over top of saw marks. So get in the habit of cleaning all of that stuff up before we start setting any of the detail cuts, or even laying out any of the cuts for that matter. And you don't have to have them perfectly smooth. You want it to look carved when it's done. I'm not going to mention any names, but if he watches this video, he knows who I'm talking about. I got a really, really good friend who carves super smooth, and I get on to him all the time about it. And he said, my brain can't, you know, carve those big cuts without getting it smooth. And that's okay, but, you know, at least get the saw marks off. Usually don't carve over the table, but it's better backdrop than looking at my feet. So clean those chips off. Alright, so now we've came in here. We've cut down alongside of each side of that nose. Again, I'm not worried about that chip in there. I'm just going to touch it to get it off. Now, the second part of this is underneath the nose. Not carving straight into the nose, but slightly away. And I'll draw it so y'all can see what I'm talking about. I want to come just along this here. I'm not too worried about the angle. The sharper the nose is, that's entirely a preference. But when I cut that cut in there, I don't want it going straight into the nose. I want it coming slightly down away from the nose. Almost like you're building a mound. Flipping it upside down, creating the other cut. Just like so. Now when I come in here in the center, I can take that lip down. What I want to establish on the sides of that nose is 3 planes. And what I mean by that is I want a flat spot where your lip is going to be, and then I want a plane this way and a plane that way. So when you bite that sandwich, so to speak, you don't have a flat spot. You want that curve in there. So by doing the flat plane kind of theory first, is getting 3 planes, you know you're automatically going to have somewhat of a curve in there. Okay, so now once I've established this, you notice our profile hasn't changed that much, but we've just got that mound. I want to create the side of those nostril lines, and I'm using a pencil just for me to see, because if you look, even though I did it, it's not equal. I've got one that's a little bit further or more forward than the other. So this one actually needs to come back just a little bit. So with the big V tool, if you look at the sides of these, when I'm teaching, I always talk about the sides of the blade. Remember the old bow saw where you have to push it forward, then bring it back, and then you actually make the cut? That's exactly what I do on the sides of the nose. I don't want it to come into the nose. I want to lay this side of the blade on the side I've already created, and I want to make that cut. I don't want to cut any of the nose whatsoever. So when I create that cut, the nose goes into that cheek. Now if I turn it up like this and I cut into the nose, I'm now making some sort of weird back cut, and it makes the nose appear like it's kind of glued on. Same way, I'm going to lay it, if I have to lay it down, that's fine. Then I can come here, I don't change my angle, and I make that cut. I just want to graze the side of the nose. I don't want to cut in toward the nose on any direction of the carving. So now that I've created it, I'm going to zoom in by magically pulling it closer. what I want to do now is this angle here, I want to connect this angle up here. I don't want to change this angle. I don't want to come down. I don't want to go further up. The same angle you got here is the angle that connects that cheek. So same angle. We don't want to change it. We don't want to rock it this way or rock it there. Lay it up to that cut you've already done. Put the tip in there and then create that cut. So now there's no gap between that nose over into the cheek.
Fran Taylor wants to know, she's having storms. If she loses the feed, how can she watch it later?
It'll be posted back to the Carving Friends website as soon as we wrap up. And as much as we do depends on how many people are watching. If I get down to like no people watching, then I will lock it up. If people are continuing to watch, we will continue shooting. So now, if you look, there's no weird angle in that nose. Okay? It's a straight line. So the same way we're going to do here, I'm going to put that in there, and I'm not going to cut in from this direction, or I'm not going to cut further down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it up directly into that angle we have already created. And I'm going to go into that corner, and then I'm going to go into this corner here, and I'm going to take out that triangle cut. And this reestablishes what I was speaking about earlier, and it makes it more visible. We now have three planes. We have a flat plane here, a plane that goes there, and a plane that goes down this way. So that is half, I don't want to say half, but it's the, you know, if you're looking at a stop sign is more round than a square. So we're now creating that round in flat plane form, so to speak. But it's a lot easier to go from flat to whatever a half of a six-sided thing is, so to speak, because now all we got to do is knock off that little high spot and that little high spot, and now we've got a nice arch in there for our mouth. So when we look at it this way, we can see that it's nice and curved in there. Okay, back up to the eyes. I'm going to jump up, now that we've created with this nose, a lot of people, this is what they'll call the, what I call rather, the flat plane eyes, or the flat socket eyes. They'll start carving eyes right in here, and they're really nice. And I do it on some of my carvings. But on this particular one, I'm going to do what I call an eye socket. So we know that the center is about right here. We'll draw it in for the camera. So what I want to do is I want to clean up those cut marks, those pop marks. So the first thing I do is I go directly across the bridge of the nose. And I'm not looking to carve, you know, super deep. But I want to go across the bridge of the nose just like that. What that's going to do is that's going to push that nose back up in there. So when we look at it here, we start seeing more of a profile come off. We're going to take all of this back in there in just a minute. More often than not, people try to carve their eyes entirely too early. They try to start carving them right in here. The eyes need to go a little bit further back, which is going to make that nose come off of the face. It's a lot easier to bring all this back and then carve it than it is to carve that eye and then something looks weird and you've got to remove all that wood. All right, so with the same thing, this is a 3/8 inch soft V tool. I'm just going to create a little scoop right in here, which is going to clean up this line that we created earlier with the knife, and then we're going to come and turn it around and do the exact same thing. And all I'm doing is a small scoop on either side. So now what I want to do is, we said all of this is going to come down a lot further. We can do that many ways. The easiest way I do, and I start off, is by taking my pencil center line off, and I just go ahead and put me a deep groove through there. And how deep is that groove? Well, it don't go all the way to the bridge, but we see that we went pretty deep. So now I know exactly where my center line is. Now I can take all of this off. You can carve it up or you can carve it down. It doesn't matter, whatever your preference is. For me, I'm going to carve it down because I'm going to go right above it and I'm going to start doing scoop cuts. Now I don't want to go all the way through because I want to put some sort of crazy hair up there. So put a cut anywhere up in here. Does not matter. the higher the forehead, the goofier it looks. Ryan Olson, if any of y'all are familiar with him, does a lot of crazy high foreheads. They're absolutely wonderful carvings. I love them. And I've been doing a lot of those high foreheads lately. You just get a lot more expression out of them. And again, I'm not worried about a sharp, crisp line in there. I'm going to do something funky with the hair. So what you see by me scooping that upward is now I start creating that upper eyebrow. And I can go all the way around. And even though we changed direction right there on the hair, doesn't matter. We got hair. Now we can kind of see where something may want to live later. And now that I'm looking at it, I've got just a little bit lower on this eye. So to straighten that up, I just take a little bit of that nostril off in one cut, relief cut it from the bottom. Now, one of the tools I did not tell you about, and I meant to get that out, is this is an OCCT tool, and it's a number 7. And I don't know exact dimensions. I think it's a 3/4 if I'm not mistaken. I got a little handy tape measure here. So I lied. It's 5/8. So it's a 5/8 inch number 7. And if you look at that, it's not huge as far as the radius goes. So what I do is establish. My eyes are going to be in here. How wide do I want the face? So let's say that the face is going to be about yay wide. You can take and measure it this way. You can flip it over and measure it to just get perfect. But for me, I just want it close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come not straight in, but slightly outward. And I'm going to start scooping toward this ear. And that cut looks about like that. And it's going to be right in the temple area. And I'm not going to try to break the ear out, but I am going to scoop up in toward it, like so. And if you look, now the face is a lot narrower. And again, this is rough work. We're not getting into a whole bunch of detail at the moment. We're just getting some big cuts to where some stuff starts taking shape. So now if you look at that, the ears are not shaped at all. We've got big peaks right here. We've got crazy hair going on up here. We've got nothing going on down here. So I know that I want to make this forehead long, but to make it look even longer, I want to narrow this in. So what I'll do is I'll jump back to the 90-degree V-tool. And again with the nose, that we did with the knife, we don't want to change this angle. So whatever angle you created here, let's keep that angle. And I just want to pop these high spots off right here, and what I can do is just work that up into there. I think I went through 7 or 8 times. I'm not worried about this. You can break it off. You can come back in and just nip it this way. I don't know exactly where I want the hair to stop yet. I just want to narrow that face. I'm going to do the same thing here. So several cuts up into there.
Leaf Alexander Brutton says, "Wish my wife would let me carve in the house."
Well, we were having this conversation earlier. I have a nice carving shop out back, but unfortunately, I don't have the nice air conditioner. So, we've got different reasons as to why I get to carve in the house. I tell everybody it's because I can be with my loving family, but my wife knows the truth that I just get hot and lazy and come in here and make chips. But I do clean them up. So, what you do to offset that is you give your wife first choice of everything you carve, which tends to help me out a lot too. So, with that, you see we carved the forehead more narrower, okay? And we just did that with the V tool. Now we've got this big blocky head, or hair rather, and we can make that do anything we want to do.
Is this from your book?
Is this from my book? Absolutely. This is the same concept I used in my book, Cutting Corners. But like I say, those of you guys who know me know that I love to share, and because without all of us carving, I mean, if we don't get to a point where we're spreading this to the next generation, it's going to be lost. So yes, I could definitely tell you to go buy my book, and I would greatly appreciate it. But I'm also, love to give back and just show you guys some hands-on. A book is a really good resource, but seeing something in a video, to me, helps out tremendously.
You got a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Patrick wants to know, so you're telling me you sent me the leftover carving?
I sent you the leftover carving. I probably did. If it's Patrick, is that Patrick Burns?
Yes.
Okay. What some of y'all don't know is Patrick is one of these guys who has this gravy job. All he does is ride around on a boat and pretend he's, doing stuff for the environment and whatever. But all the pictures he's ever sent me is just waves behind a big outboard engine. So, on a hot day, it's really awesome to get those pictures from your buddy when you're, driving around sweating. So.
Joe Cassidy says he joined in kind of late and is wondering what kind of knife are you using?
Joe, this is this is my knife that is made by HelvieKnives.com. If you just Google Helvie, Helvie, it'll take you directly to their website. This is my number 14. There's no fancy name on it. It is literally called Signature Series number 14. It's got a mahogany handle and it's got a maple end cap. I've got larger hands, but this one comes out beyond my hand, so therefore I feel, you can say a ton of different things. The main thing is I wanted a longer knife for hogging out wood, and this one fits the bill, and I love the way it fits. So
Patrick's response to you is, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah, well,
You got several people giving you kind of a shout out from where they're from. You've got some from Chicago, a couple from Kentucky, Kansas, it looks like, and North Carolina. You want to tell them where we're from?
We are from Hickory, North Carolina. For those of you who may not be familiar with North Carolina, we are an hour east of Asheville and about an hour northwest from Charlotte. So most of the people around the country can either relate to Charlotte or Asheville. What I've been doing while I've been answering some questions is just knocking off some curves here. So let's go here. We still got these saw marks. So we can go right across the end grain here. And this isn't me plugging Helvie knives, but if you look, I've had this knife for, I think, 2 months now, maybe, month and a half. It's still razor sharp, and I carve a lot. And it looks like we're getting a low battery on the phone here, so my wife's going to plug it in real quick. So I'm going to hold it just for a second while she inserts proper cord to phone application. I know these live videos suck up a lot of juice.
Bob Davis wants to know, where can he get your book?
Bob, if you go to my website, it is D Gosnell. That's GOSNELL woodcarving.com. They're actually available on the main page. It's called Cutting Corners. And I do apologize, but I'm going to have to yell at my dog because she's getting the zoomies. So I'm going to let my wife spray bottle because we're not over there and she's going nuts. So now that I can zoom, I don't know what my wife's been doing because I haven't been looking at the phone. But if you can look, we just shaped up the top of this here. Hello from South Dakota. Hey, John, how are you, sir? And we look at the profile. Those eyebrows can go back yet again a little bit further. You do any kind of carving seminars? Joe, yes, I do. And thanks for asking that question. The next venue I will be at is going to be at the Buckeye Woodcarvers Roundup in Fletcher, Ohio. If you contact Jim or Barb Foster, they're in charge of that. Or if you go directly to their website, Buckeye Woodcarvers Roundup. I, along with several other carvers, is going to be there. It's a big weekend up there for them. And I do know that Rich of Helvie Knives will be there sharpening and selling. So yes, that's my next venture.
Dave Chambers wants to know what kind of wood is that.
Dave Chambers, I love you, buddy. It is basswood. And if you look on the bandsaw, everybody makes mistakes. I cut this one in and evidently got lazy right here and didn't cut that one out on the side of the ear there. So again, a couple cuts here.
Dave Chambers says, have you ever cut yourself?
I have. And yes, what's the other question is, you know, there's always, it's coming in threes, and he's probably already typing it in, but it's basswood. Yes, I have cut myself, and no, I can't feed my family with just carving wood, and I don't know how many years I've been carving now, and
we got a couple other questions. Do you teach at home?
I do teach smaller classes at the house, but I have to limit what I teach and when I teach, because the thing about it is, I've got kids, so, you know, if it's during the school year, it kind of limits as to when I can, because, you know, nothing says, hey, let me give you money, like, oh, hey, can you wait here for an hour while I go get my kid from school? So they have to be based on time and availability, but I do teach at the house.
Fran Taylor wants to know, are you going to be at the Roundup in Lebanon, Tennessee in October?
I am teaching as well at the October Renegade Roundup in Lebanon, Tennessee. If you will Google Steve Brown wood carving, his brochures are on there. I will be teaching with Bob Thurston, Dale Green, my brain just went blank, Carol Levy, and Gary Phelan will be the 5 instructors, and myself will be there. The other thing that we're doing this year in the fall that's a little different than we have in the past is we're going to do a carver trade, in where people bring their carving, and what they do is we're basically going to swap. We're going to draw names or something. I've heard a bunch of different theories on who wants to do what, and we're going to try to make it as fair as possible. There's no judging. So in other words, you know, such and such didn't get first place and he gets to go first and picks the best carving. What we're going to do is, if you want to participate, bring the carving in. I think we're going to limit it to like 6 or 8 inches. We don't want no 24-inch, you know, chainsaw carvings in there. And then, you know, we're going to draw names. If we've got 15 people, we'll put a number 1 through 15 in a bag. And then whoever draws, you know, potluck number 1, they get to draw first.
Hi, Dave. Tell Tiffany I said hello. Michael Stein wants to know, what type of glove are you using?
This is a local glove. It's a manufacturer from Carolina Glove. It is a cut level resistant 5. I actually sell these as well on my website. And without having 5,000 right-handed gloves, because you know you carve on your non-dominant hand, I sell them by the pair, and I think they're $11 on the website. I've had this particular glove since July or August of 2017, and I've not worn out a tip of the fingers or anything. But those other gloves that I paid $20 and $25 for, and you only get the one glove, I wear out the thumb within a matter of about 6 to 8 weeks. This one's getting thinner, but again, this is going on almost 2 years with this one glove. They are not cut proof, as nothing is, but I've poked and jabbed and scraped, and unless you get a lot of force, and that's going to go through any glove. But these are meant to be snug. They fit your hand tight. Those other gloves are kind of big and bulky, and there's a size measurement and everything on the website if you're looking at one of those.
Ed Redone wants to know, have you met Ron Davidson since he moved to Charlotte?
I haven't met him since he's moved to Charlotte, but I've known him for years. So I'm answering your question with kind of something else. I've known Ron, and me and Ron speak quite often, but I haven't been to his new place, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I've known Ron and Becky for quite some number of years. All right.
I don't know if this is Kith or Kith Banks. Sorry if I mispronounced it. How do we find out about classes at home?
What you do is email me through the through my website, and I would have to actually set up a time that we could do it, and it would have to work with my schedule and yours, obviously. And I would work with you on that. So now, as we were doing, y'all seen me shape the ears. Hopefully she wasn't just looking at something else, because I'm not looking at the phone. I'm just kind of doodling and talking at the same time. We've kind of just shaped the ears with the knife. We've got these here. Let's go ahead here, and I'm going to pull this eyebrow, because I said it earlier. To me, it looks too mean. It's still very much forward. You could work it on an old guy who's kind of scouring, but let's do a smile or something on this guy. So I want to pull his eyebrows back a little bit. That'll also take some age out of him, because like my wife tells me, I'm getting older now, so my eyebrows are getting bushier, and you know, ear hair and all that stuff. So just kind of be aware of what you're carving and keep checking that profile. I want to add that separation again, and we want to get it somewhere close to the middle, 3/8 inch soft V. I also want to open this eye up a little bit more, because I'm noticing I've got a really narrow eye socket in there, and that can create a meaner look too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this in slow motion, so to speak, is I'm going to go up and then down. I'm going to create an arch in there, but I can't carve it slow because, so see, it's arched up just a little bit, as opposed to the first one was just kind of straight across. Same way here on the opposite side. I want to arch it up and then down. And if you look, I'm going to see if it'll zoom in here. Let's let it zoom. What that's done is I've went a little deeper than the original. That's already give you an upper eyelid on both of those, because we went straight across and then we went up and down. So that bottom part of that cut establishes where your upper eyelid's going to go. Now you can come back in there with a V-tool and cut that, but I'm just letting you know, if you don't go willy-nilly and wide open, some of the stuff works with you. And that's one of the things that I do a lot, is I'll come straight across or a smaller arch, and then I go above that one, because technically speaking, we don't even have to carve that up here. We can carve the bottom of that eyelid and leave this just rounded in there. It all depends on whether you've got a hidden upper eyelid or an exposed upper eyelid. You don't need a big, deep cut up in there to create the shadow you want to go for. The other thing is I've got a lot of wood right here, and I've got the top of this nose that kind of looks plain. I could do this with a couple different ways. I could take the knife and cut up in there. I could take a V-tool. I could take the soft gouge. The choices are endless. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the soft, or not the soft one, but this one we were talking about earlier, the number 9, and I'm just going to kind of define the top of that nose a little bit. And then we'll come here, and I'm going to define it this way. The other thing that you can do is, if you want to get a little bit extra fancy, is you can take that, either the bigger gouge, the soft V, doesn't matter, and just put a little scoop right in the top of that nostril to cut that hard line off, like so. And at this point, I can come back a little more narrow on the face with that same tool. We don't want it to go from like flat to diving off the side, so we want to swoop it around a little bit. Now if you look at the profile of this guy, his eyebrows are pushed back a little bit further now. Now when we're carving the ear, we're going to address it from the outside in, because these guys are sticking straight out, because he's going to be a refrigerator magnet or a stand-up guy. But on a regular carving, these ears would go back. But what I do is, now that we've got the side or back of them shaped, I'm going to come in from this angle and scoop slightly forward. And what I'm looking for is a smooth transition between those two there.
Can you repeat again where the videos are going to be posted? There's some people with some bad storms around.
The video will be posted on Carving Friends website. If you're viewing this, you're already on the website where they'll be reposted. I will also contact Holly Smithson and see if she wants to snag it and post it on the Helvywood site. You know, a lot of times they'll do that for me, but I cannot go live in more than one video. And since I've told you guys where you can buy stuff, I don't want to post it on some of the other websites like Caricature Carvers, because I know they have rules against selling anything. So I'm not here to sell you anything, but I want to compete or comply with their rules, and they do have rules to say, hey, don't, you know, sell or promote anything on their sites. So if we see this here, we're going to draw it in pencil just so y'all can see. It's going to come here. It's going to go up, down, and out. Basically an arch. I like drawing both of them at the same time because I found out that if I draw one and carve it and then I try to draw the other one, it doesn't come out quite as even. And if you start looking at it, my nose is slightly crooked. That's okay. My nose is crooked every time I look in the mirror. So now I'm going to jump down to the 1/4 inch V-tool. What I want to do is the point on the V-tool. I know this sounds silly, but the point on the V-tool tells you exactly which way you're carving. More often than not, I see people holding the V-tool, and that's the only action they've got is straight in. And my wife's looking out the window, and I'm looking at the phone, and it's going over toward left yonder. So, all right. All right. So what I was saying is the point of the V-tool, the top part, tells you where it's going to go. A lot of times I see people just carving straight in. With an eye, this eye is round. So when we're above the eyeball, the V-tool needs to point upward. When you cut straight in, that's where you see those carvings that look like they're footballs, so to speak. So with the V-tool slightly upward on the top of the eye, we're going to start in the center of the eye from left to right, and we're going to create this cut down through here, and the chip won't come out, and I don't care. We'll get it later. Same way here, I'm going to turn it upside down, but now it's going to go down, but it's still on top of the eyeball, but we're going to angle it down from us, but up from the eye. So now, if you can zoom in on that, which we can on the phone, see this was our original cut straight across. Now we've carved the upward angle and we've created that arch. Don't feel like you need to cut that so deep that it's going to go to the back of his skull. It just has to be a nice, crisp line. Now, the bottom part, and I'm going to do the opposite side in real time of what I would actually carve one. It would be over like so, and then we'll come. And again, it don't matter whether you carve outward or inward, as long as you start in the center. Now, you may look at yourself and say, well, Dwayne, I start on the outside and I can make that cut all the way across. Absolutely, you can. But a lot of people struggle with making that cut. I'm just giving you another option, and an easier way that I found it is break that up into 2 cuts. Those of you who know me know that I usually don't draw a lot, but for videos, it's a lot easier for me to draw it, so y'all can kind of see what I'm talking about, even though I run my mouth a lot. So right above that arch that we created with the gouge is where that eyeball is going to lie. And the other thing too is we got a whole bunch of nice pencil erasers laying here with sharp objects. If you don't like what you see, just take a small gouge and cut it off and redraw it. So I'm looking at those and I say, hey, those are kind of cool. So same way, halfway from left to right, again pointing upward. And again, that chip won't come out, but it's okay. We'll clean it up in a minute. So I'm going to turn the carving upside down, still ensuring that my V-tool is pointed upward when I make the cut because it's above the eye. Our eyeball is going to live right in there.
I just sent a message saying that yes, you can post it to the Helvey website.
Okay.
Or our
Well,
Helvey page.
Holly Smithson said we have permission, so we will post it there as well. I know that they've been putting in air conditioners up there in that good old Indiana heat. So we're going to smooth off a couple of these sharp corners, nothing fancy. We just don't want any points sticking out there because they were catching my eye, and I've got a little fuzzy right here. I'm just going to cut it off. Okay. So now we're going to create the bottom of the eye, which is the upper part of the lower eyelid. And that's a lot to say, but that's exactly what it is. But everything below the eyeball is going to go down. So we carved everything up front upward. Everything below the eye is going to carve downward. And with this being a live video, if you hear me say, oh crap, I've messed up, then that's exactly what it is. So I'm going to cut downward. And if you draw your lines in, which I normally don't do, I normally just eyeball them, make sure you try to get all of that pencil off. I've seen a lot of people who what I call start digging because they're chasing that line. Well, then they end up getting 3, 4, 5, 6 cuts. And all they're doing is really trying to chase that pencil line. So I would much rather go slow, because as some of y'all who are in the military or such, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. You know, a lot of people say, well, Dwayne, you carve so fast. No, it's not that I carve fast. It's just that, you know, in my carving over the years, I've had a lot of good instructors, and all of them tell me the same thing, is commit to your cut and cut it. You know, where you start getting these hesitation is where you say, well, you do this, and then same way with the V-tool, we nip and we tuck, cut your cut, and be done. All right, most important thing that I can tell you on eyeballs, and we're going to switch over to the little mini knife. You can do it with the big one, absolutely, but this one, you know, is a little bit skinnier. And what we're going to do is the same cut that we created, even though we were saying it was a V-tool, everything, now we're going to focus right in on the eyeball here, and I'm going to let it focus. And I'm going to try to get in here between the phone. Above the, we're talking about the eye. Above the eye gets carved upward. Below the eye gets carved downward. Where a lot of people make their mistakes is they go straight into that eye in the corner, then they come back up this way, they go straight in, and then they take out this triangle, and it looks like you have a triangle stuck in the corner of an eye. So I'm going to tell my wife to push it in really, really close as long as you don't hit my hand. And I'm going to try to get this in here. So the bottom cut is slightly downward. The top cut is slightly upward. Now, we're not going to go straight into that eye. We're going to lay this V-tool, or not this V-tool, this knife over toward the center of the eye and cut into that. We're not going to come straight in there and make a triangle. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to lay it straight over toward the eye, the center of the eye. And if the whole word of physics or geometry or whatever, if we cut the top part up and the bottom part down and we've sliced that, that chip can't come out this way because the chip is bigger than the opening. So slide that chip back toward the center of the eye. If you do that, you're probably going to pop off a bottom or a lower, or an upper or a lower eyelid. So that chip wants to come back out toward the center. We're going to do the exact same thing over here. The bottom of the eye goes down. The top of the eye goes upward. And then we're going to come and slice it downward. I didn't say that on the first cut. The reason I always slice it downward is if you look at this wood, there's a lot of wood underneath that lower eyelid to stop that knife. If you look at it and you carve it upward, you have a sliver of wood right here. So if you cut that cut upward, chances are you're going to break out the eyelid. So now we've got each triangle coming in. Now we're going to take ever so slight cuts shaping that eye. it took me many, many years, and up until probably about 2 years ago, I would take those triangles out of there and I would be done with that eyeball, and I would get to the paint process and be like, what in the heck is this? Just all kinds of weird roly-polies and stuff in that eyeball. And what it was is I was carving those two, that front and that left triangle, so to speak, and I wasn't spending a little bit of extra time putting that roundness in the eye. So I know that's kind of all of our, your instructors you've had in the past, they put a pupil in there. What they're doing is kind of showing you where the eye goes and, hey, it's round. And then they send you back and say, hey, do that eye. So this one's going to be in real time without explaining it, but I'm going to show you that once you get the mechanics down, it doesn't take that long. A lot of what's taking so long is me running my mouth and trying to over-explain it to you. So inside corner, outside corner, always cutting down. If that chip don't come out, pull it toward the center. And I'm going to turn it upside down and backwards, just like crown molding. And we're going to take just some very minute little cuts. And if you cut it 3 times and you blow on it twice and it don't come off, it needs to be cut again. So that's the rule of thumb. And we got, from my point of view, there's a little bit of chip hanging right there and a little bit of chip hanging right there. Now, if we want a little bit more detail in here, you can do a magical little cut. I did not invent this cut. It's called a stop cut and a relief cut. If you put a stop cut and a relief cut on the outside of the eyelid, and then you put a stop cut and a relief cut, I think in one of Pete LeClaire's books, he called it a wedge cut, and I always thought that was kind of cool. But you're just taking out a minute sliver on each side of the eye, and what that does is it makes that eye appear more rounder than it actually is. But the test is when we turn it to the side, that eye, we can't see the inside corner. So if you're carving and you see the inside corner, your eye is too flat. Now, also looking at the profile, you say, well, Dwayne, I've carved my eyes, but I don't like my nose. I'm going to show you, and I did this on purpose, or y'all never know whether I did or not. I can still define some more depth to that nose. All I've got to do is take out more in the bridge here. Make sure we're not cutting over into the eye, like so. Round that out. You can come back in here with a gouge if you want to, but we're just going to do it with a knife. And now when you look at the profile, it changes the profile dramatically just by taking another 1/4 inch in there. All right, the other thing I want to talk to you about, and this is going to be with the number 9, the reason when we started talking about carving the bottom of the nose away from the nose and not straight in was for this reason here. Starting out for probably 10 years, I guess, I would carve these nostrils and I would break the top of the nose. And the reason I was doing that is without hesitation, I was cutting up and I was trying to scrape that nostril out. Now, with me cutting slightly away instead of straight in, if you look, it's slightly downward. So whatever tool fits. Books and magazines will tell you, oh, you have to have a 1/4 inch number, such and such, such and such. If this, on my carving, if the nostril is a 1/4 inch and I could make it work, I'm going to make it work. If a 3/8 works, make a 3/8 work. So you turn the gouge upside down. Now the arch is upward toward the nose. I want to come just below that tip there. I'm going to cut straight in. Now I'm not cutting to the point, and I don't want to do one of these measures because it's going to break the top of the nostril out. Same way here. I want to cut that in there. And if you look from a level point, it's slightly up, but it's almost more straight in. If we would have cut that straight in to begin with, we have to come way down here, which is going to bust something. Now, this one is a very technical, cut. You stick the knife point up in there, and you literally take that chip and barely touch it down, and it's going to break out. In the top of that angle there, I'm not going to try to come in here and twist and pop and click. I'm just going to go to the very corner, or up in the center of that arch, and I'm going to cut in. Same way here, I'm going to come this way, and I'm going to cut in. And what I'm doing is creating a small triangle up in there to get that chip out. And if you look now, I don't know if it'll show with the shadow, by creating that triangle, let me move my light and see if it'll brighten it up there. Okay. So if you look at the triangle we've now created up in there, it gives you the appearance of more depth than you actually have. Same way here, I'm going to go to the center of the arch up in there. I'm going to come this way, go to the center of the arch, and then we'll slice that out. And I don't know if y'all notice, my wife is like very close to me with the phone, so I hear her cringing as I spin the knife around in my hand there. All right, so there we go. We've created a nose with nostrils. We've created the eyes. We can now come in here and do anything. You know, you can even come in here and go dramatically, you know, let's take another good 1/4 to 1/2 inch of wood out. I'm going to show you that on these little corner guys, it does not matter. And this kind of guy's starting to take on, I don't know which one the blonde-headed guy was on Beavis and Butthead, but he's kind of taking on that guy's persona, so to speak. He's starting to look like Beavis or Butthead, whichever one the blonde-headed guy was, with that crazy hair.
If you pop his nostrils up a little bit more flared, they would be perfect.
He would be perfect. So if we want to flare his nostrils a little bit more, we just cut you a little triangle right in there. Cut you a little triangle right in there. You know, don't ever be afraid to change it. What are you laughing at?
Your Beavis and Butthead.
My Beavis and Butthead. Beavis. All right, so we're just going to pop another little iris and pupil on there. So now he looks like he's looking at us. So Darlene is watching. How's Miss Darlene doing over there in the mounting taxidermy? If y'all don't know, look at this video. The Darlene rushing Tarleton. She'll probably kill me, but if you ever kill anything and you want it mounted, call Darlene. She's probably one of the best taxidermists in the eastern part of the United States, if not the entire world. She does some phenomenal stuff over there. She's based out of Hickory, and she's actually a really, really good carver too, because she knows what a warthog and a pig and a elefante, all that stuff, she knows what they look like. So really great, really great carver as well. All right, so let's do a smile of some sort. We want to make sure our cheek lines, and I just brought them out further. You can do whatever you want. You know, let's have a little bit of a smile. We'll sacrifice some of our chin, so to speak. And I don't want to get too wide out there. Let's go this way, because I'm gonna do something else. So, and again, if you make a line with a pencil and you don't like it, you have all of these erasers right here. I don't like that outside line right there, and I don't like this outside line right here. You don't have to go crazy, and you don't have to pick up that red thing on the end of your pencil and start digging at it, because it doesn't really work that great. So, all right. One other thing, and I don't like this high spot right there on the side of that, so let's cut the high spot off, replace the pencil line. Beavis, she's pulled out of Beavis and Butthead. He kind of does look like, ooh, we're gonna, yeah, she pulled me out of picture, guys, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna change this mouth a little bit.
Beavis is the blonde-headed one.
Beavis is the blonde-headed one, I'm being told. So with that being said, let's do a little bit of manipulation here. What we need to do is we need to narrow this chin with this chin quite a bit. So what I want to do is I want to come kind of just straight in go kind of back toward that neck. Again, when we were starting out, I don't really worry about this. I can clean that up with a V or a soft V. Same way here. I'm just going to flip him over, and I'm just going to narrow that thing in. And some of you who have met me know that I say go where the wood takes you. I just kind of seen this guy started looking like, you know, the above named little dude. So he had this really kind of puzzled, you know, mouth drop down. And it's kind of like that, hey Beavis. So he's got kind of a drop down, and he's got, you know, it looks like when he smiles, he's got about as many teeth as a jack-o'-lantern. So there we go. He's got this kind of droopy mouth on the side. Tommy Thigpen. Well, Phooey, I hope you post this after I don't even think about time differences. You know, and I didn't post that either, Tommy, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I apologize. I kind of just assumed that everybody lives around the East Coast. And I do apologize about that. So let's take this. I've lost a tool. There it is. So I hope I'm not the only one who loses tools that are right in front of you. So again, when we were talking about laying these V-tools down, I want to create layers, and I'm kind of using this V-tool as a chisel. But what I'm saying is not with the eyes where I say it's pointed up. I want to go and lay it down on the wood, and I want to take the side that's hitting the wood to go downward. So in other words, I'm not going straight in and creating a 45 degree in there. What I'm doing is I'm laying it down and cutting that, and you could do it even with a 90. Okay, the only reason I'm not doing it is because this one's a lot bigger. So I'm going to take the small V-tool. I'm going to lay that V-tool down and use it like a chisel. What I'm doing is by me carving this part and just having a straight line up there, that creates a layer of the upper lip. And I'm going to come right around and then out. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper. And now that I've got that, let's do what I said I wasn't going to do. Let's get the big one, okay? Because now I can really take those teeth down. And not only that, it was only a 1/4 inch on the wing there, so I started running out of stuff to cut. I don't want it ripping through the bottom of the wood. So now, if you look at that, the upper lip is more proud than the bottom part. So let's look at my picture again with the Beavis. He's got some scrawny teeth in here, like so. Now with this one, I can go straight in or slightly down because I want to go between those teeth. So let's use the 1/4 inch because I want his teeth just kind of barely touching. Am I in frame there? I want these teeth just barely touching the bottom of that lip. And I want to go pretty deep in there. How deep? Well, about 1/8 of an inch or so, like so. So now what I can do is, again, remember the sandwich comment? We still want it to be round, and since we carved that, we flattened out those teeth. So what I want to do is, just like with the eyes, I want to cut those teeth back just a little bit, and I want to carve them down because there's a little bit more wood down than there is up. And I'm going to cut from the bottom and the top just to get those teeth sticking out there. Spend a little extra time to get the fuzzies, get the pencil lines gone. Alright, we're going to hold this. Our puppy's scratching at the door. And that's what I'm talking about, where we kind of bring it in. See how this side that I'm pecking at with my finger here is flat, and then this side that I'm pecking at with my thumb here is going back in. Ron Dowdy from North Carolina, he told me that 15 years ago. He said, Dwayne, when you're biting into a sandwich, do you have a flat spot? And for some reason, you know, a lot of great instructors have told me stuff over the years, and for some reason that kind of stuck with me, and I say it all the time now, but it makes perfect sense. So wife's coming back over. She's let the dog out. She'll be scratching here in a minute. She'll probably go bark at some lightning bugs because it's starting to get dark here. So same way here. we're going to come, and I've turned it up, we're going to come in here. I don't want to cut straight in, I want to cut slightly upwards and downwards. Because if you cut straight in, you're creating straight in cuts. I want it to look like these teeth are inside the mouth. So now that we've got those, if you take, once you get that out, there we go. And I want to take these teeth kind of straight down and then take off that high spot right there. Now, if you take your knife, I promise you I'm not picking at the wood. All those are loose, they're just hanging in there. If you take the top of your knife and you just kind of come back in very gently around that upper lip, it'll give it a little bit of a shape. We don't want that straight in cut. Now you can put your little jobber do down in here, and what a jobber do is a stock cut and a relief cut just to clean that corner up. Now, same way with this bottom lip, I just want to gently go across and take off that hard line, because now what I'm going to do, let me look at this picture and see what kind of weird lip he's got. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, he's got just a little bitty dent lip. So I'm going to take this, there we go, we'll take this gouge here and just run it across the bottom like so. Run it this way, and then I'm going to kind of run it out of the wood. Same way here, I'm going to go slightly upward and then just kind of run it out of the wood. Now he's got this big chin here that we've created, and this guy Beavis has a really weak bottom chin, so we're just going to take that off, round it up, and in something like this, we're just going to scoop this neck out. And because we want this to be a neck instead of like a high collar, I just do the cuts up through there, and now I get the soft V and I run it right along top of that, and it creates a smooth transition that I don't have to deal with a knife, because I want that to be round. I want it to be round right through there. I don't want a hard cut. And if you can see, it's now round and smooth through there. Now I want to create this over here, because he's got, I think he's the one that wears the ACDC shirt, or Metallica. One of them wears something.
It doesn't show it much.
And it doesn't show it on the picture, it just shows it. Like I say, one of them wears ACDC, one of them wears Metallica, depending on, you know. So let's go through, and let me make sure I'm in the thing. So we want to come, and we want this to be his neck. We want this to be his t-shirt, so we're going to come right along here. And this is what I was talking about layers, because this t-shirt is on top of his neck. There's no point in us taking a V-tool and cutting a 45 degree and then coming back with the knife and doing all this. So if you lay that tool, so let's get even a bigger one, because it'll fit. We have enough room. If you lay this tool, this V-tool, down on its side, and you cut the neck like so, and I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to leave all this pencil line on here just to show you what I'm talking about. Now, I don't know if it'll zoom in there. Now the neck, I don't have to go back in with a knife and cut all that stuff and fade it out. It's already created by layering the wood with the V-tool. There's going to be purists that says, well, I only use my knife. Well, you know, that's cool. I'm just giving you another option, so to speak. Now, like I say, it takes too long to do Metallica, so we're just going to write on here some AC/DC. So that's the AC. And then here's your little lightning bolt. And then your DC. So I don't know if that's the one he got, but he's got the AC/DC shirt on now. Now, the only thing we got left is the teeth and the ears. And you can come back in here with a knife if you want to, but if you just pop these up, one or two bigger teeth, and in that same line you just connect to the bottom. And if you notice, we created 6 cuts and there's going to be 6 chips in there. All we have to do is touch those on the top and the bottom. They will pop right out. Well, I said they would pop right out. There, he's wiggly. Now, if you want a little bit more detail, you just take your knife and just put your little slick cut right in there, like so. I don't like how that's mounded up right there, so I'm going to take a little bit deeper between the eyebrows. Like so. Like so. Made him look a little more angrier, so we're going to round this one off just a fuzz. Now, as far as the ears go, the ear flap that we're talking about comes down in. More often than not, I see these ears that come in and they kind of stop. This ear flap goes down. We don't have to have a whole lot to make it look like an ear. We just got to have the lines going in the right direction. I don't get hung up on stuff. I typically try to do stuff a lot simpler. So what I want to do is just like the eyes, because I'm changing wood grain pattern in there, so I want to limit my breakout as much as possible. So I want to start in the upper part and come down, and I know that that chip's not going to come out, so I don't try to force through it and break it out. Same way here, I know that the chip's not going to come out. I'm starting to cut into some end grain, so instead of forcing it on through, I stop and I come back up this way and I touch it, and it should come right out. Same way here, if I just touch it back this way, that chip comes directly out. Same way here, I want to start in the center, come down, and I want to start in the center, come down. Again, I'm starting to dig into end grain. So I come up. You know, it don't have to be one cut as long as you take your time and make the cuts match up. Same way here, we're going to pop that out with the V-tool. You can pop it out with a knife, but I call them hesitation marks, is where we get to a point where something isn't going right and we either keep carving or keep, you know, jabbing at it, hoping that it's going to magically come out the 8th time you carve on it. If you want to get extra fancy on these, and then we'll finish up here in just a second, is you can take just below where that flap intersects with whatever that flap is in your ear. I know it starts with a T, like a Tarja or Tanga or something. I Googled it one time and looked at it just as, you know, kind of a haha, you know, let's get really, really technical. But your ear flap, the pokey thing. So if we go slightly outward, and all I did was just pushed the gouge right in there. Okay, so if I take that same gouge and I come this way and I barely cut that out, we've now created an ear flap in there. Same way here, we're just going to tickle that wood out of there. And what I mean by tickle is you're very lightly cutting. None of this stuff that I've done I've really forced. If you're forcing your tools, you know, several things are going to happen. You're going to break the tip of your knife. You're going to break the tip off of one of your fingers with the knife. Or you're going to have a bunch of hesitation marks in your wood, or break something or whatever. So knocking off the high spots, And with these little corner guys, I rarely do hair because you don't really need it. So I don't know how long I've been talking and carving and answering questions, guys, but you know, this is where we're going to stop at. He kind of started as just carving a face, and he kind of turned into Beavis or Butthead, whichever one he was. I hope that you guys have learned something. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If there's anything I can ever do for you as far as coming to your neighborhood, your club, your carving area, get in touch with me through the website, and I'll tell you, yes or no. I am booking for 2020 already. I'm pretty solid scheduled through the end of the year. Again, most of the tools I've used, I've had for 10, 15, 20 years. If you want more tools, go buy more tools. I'm not the guy who tells you you only need 5 tools when I have 20,000 in my carving box. I know that we love tools and we buy them, but I also say that if you love tools and buy them, use them. Don't get in front of a group of people and say, oh, I only have to use my knife, or I only have to use this. I use everything I've got. Guys, I've had an enjoyable experience. If you need anything, let us know. Happy carving and God bless.